Thank you. We're recording so we can share this with everybody, the folks that are here today and others as well. So I'll save time at the ends to answer questions. So if you would save your questions so that I can get through the material I want to discuss, and then I'll be glad to open the floor for questions. And just as a note that anytime you have questions about the process, please feel free to contact me. And I'm glad to answer questions kind of at a more of a process level. The one thing that you should all note is that for those of you going up for promotion and tenure, so from assistant to associate, is make sure that you're kind of regularly talking to your department chair, talking to your department manager. That's kind of where you'll get your best sort of most specific information. But I can talk about some of the process things on my end if you have additional questions. But don't be afraid to ask. The promotion process can produce enough anxiety on its own that you should not feel afraid to ask folks for assistance at any point. So a few opening comments. I'm going to follow the agenda that's at top of the packet that I just linked. So I'm going to loosely follow it. Start with a few opening comments here. Is that, as I said, I'm going to send out this link to folks. There's also a provost office video that was done a few years ago that I'll also send you a link to, that if you want to watch. It's about an hour long. There's a panel of professors that had recently gone up for promotion that provide some feedback and comments. I try to incorporate a lot of the notes from that video into what I'm going to talk about today. So you may not need to watch both, but I'll provide you links just if you want some additional resources as well. And I'll send you links to the provost office website for promotion and tenure, which has a lot of the documents that I have in the packet that I provided as well. So I'm going to discuss both the process for promotion to associate with tenure and promotion to associate to full. Honestly, much of the elements from my perspective are similar. I know that associate professors have been through this process, but perhaps not in its newest form on SmartPath. As I was joking earlier with folks that you may have gone like I did, where we had either physical binders or you had to put together binders that were PDF documents on flash drives. And so the process has been updated quite a bit to make it easier to manage from a faculty side and administrator side. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Just a quick note that in the FAQ section of the document that I provided you, it still refers to binders and tabs. Just please ignore that language. I'll show you what SmartPath looks like from a faculty perspective. And a lot of the things that we used to have as tabbed sections in a binder are just now independent categories on a list of things that you need to upload. So the language in the FAQ, the FAQ answers are still relevant. It's just that you're not literally putting together a physical binder anymore. Actually, it used to be two binders that you used to have put together. So.
And I believe there's training for faculty on how to use SmartPath. So you'll want to look at that as well.
And it's on the provost website. And the guidelines that are in the packet also talk about how faculty can access SmartPath and include the items that they need to put in. But I believe that that only happens after the manager starts a promotion request. Is that correct? Yeah. So you can't do that immediately. You will get communication that says you're ready to now upload documents into SmartPath. And I'll show, like I said, I'll show you kind of what that looks like as well. One important theme for today for all of you is that there are many paths to promotion and tenure and promotion. There is no singular standard for excellence, and we do not compare cases to determine if someone is worthy of promotion. And so there are many narratives and many strong arguments that can be made that would lead one to promotion with tenure or promotion to full And so, the one thing to really do with your department chairs and your faculty mentors is think about what's the best argument for you and your career and your career path. Because depending on the sort of service and the sort of obligations your position has, the sort of creative or scholarly work that you do, and the output that you've done, there's many ways in which you can craft an argument. Right? And you don't need to worry about, well, this other person's going up with me, so I need to really think strategically about what my case looks like compared to them. Like, that's not the case at all. But this is something to really talk with your chair as a mentor and as your faculty mentors, and how you should go about approaching the packet and the presentation of your materials. And just one quick note that I'll also mention again later is show your materials to folks. Get them done early enough that you can get feedback from your chairs, from your faculty mentors, friends of yours in the department, because your documents will go in front of multiple audiences. And so it is incredibly useful to get several perspectives on, for instance, your personal statement or your teaching portfolio, or even your professional record. Just how does it present to other people? And it's useful if you can get people that aren't just in your discipline, who understand the acronyms and the significance of events that perhaps other people won't know. Just even at the college level, we have folks that are in the arts and the performances. We have social scientists. We have humanistic researchers. We have all kinds of folks just at that first kind of stage after your department that'll be viewing your materials. So the three metrics that you're all reviewed on that you should know at this point already is your research and creative activity, your teaching, and your service. And that the packets that you're putting together is as an attempt to demonstrate either excellence if you're going up for promotion and tenure, or if you're going up for promotion to full, is to demonstrate your leadership and national and international reputation. But you want your documents to be able to very easily display that case for multiple audiences. And so that's sort of the end objective. As I said, it's not a comparison. And we'll get feedback from external evaluators whose job is really just to talk about the merits of the scholarship and or the creative projects that you're doing. And then we'll have obviously the various committees and your chair and the dean, who will they'll do more of a job of reviewing kind of what are the Wayne State standards for excellence and do you meet those or not. So in terms of the agenda, the overview of the process I've outlined. You start with your department P&T committee in terms of review. That's early fall. Chairs review mid-fall, and then it comes to the college for review late fall term, kind of right before Thanksgiving, and we do review kind of right up until the holiday break, and we send it to the dean for his review. That kind of starts a little before the fall term ends and spills over into winter term for review. You'll get notice when it leaves the department that your file has left for review to the next level. And then once I know the dean's decisions on files, I will notify you that your files have moved on to the university. So you will receive communication throughout the process of where your files are at. You'll also receive other communication from us about requested changes and things like that I'll talk about in a minute. But it is a long process that by the time the university does its review in late winter, our hope is that when we have the spring assembly, we can announce joyously all of the folks that got promotion, tenure, and promotion at that time. But sometimes we don't have a response yet by that point. And so we always say, awaiting further information, but you'll hear about it sometime in the late winter, spring of the decision on your case. The documents, I've outlined what documents that you need to deal with initially and that go out. So there is it's a long process, as I've mentioned, and your role will begin soon. And in my discussion here, I'm combining some of the P&T calendar and procedure and guideline documents together as I talk about a little bit of sort of what the process is and what your responsibilities are. So before the department committee does a review, you're preparing obviously your materials, and the chair and the department P&T committees will create a list of external evaluators. You can look at the calendar to see some of those details and the dates on that. By March 1st, so in a couple of weeks, what you should do by then is to meet with the chair to complete the intention to apply for promotion form. That's in the packet. It's also on our college website. And then you'll also meet with the chair to discuss the department and university P&T factors. And that form is also included in the packet. That form stays, did you meet with your chair to discuss this form stays in your department. But we do that to ensure that your chairs are actually, in fact, meeting with you to discuss the process and the factors so that we don't have faculty that fall through the cracks and have had nobody advising them on this process up to that point. April to May, the department generates the list of evaluators. Faculty have some role in this process, but it's really a departmental process. So the evaluators for your packet must have a rank that you're at least the rank that you're seeking promotion towards. They must be from institutions of reputation, loosely defined, and it can be either their public status, it could be that they have an amazing program that in your discipline, there's a lot of arguments that your department can make about the expertise of potential evaluators. But really your chair along with the P&T committee will have a lot of discussion about this. Your input into it is a couple of ways. One is that the faculty member, according to CBA language, can recommend 2 evaluators to the committee. But if those 2 people are selected by the department, they need to add the minimum requirement for evaluators are 4. Now, every department will try to get more evaluators than that because they'll send out letters to folks during the summer asking for review, and people will naturally say, no, I'm too busy, I can't do that, sorry, or I'm out of the country, whatever the case may be. But if you recommend 2 names, they still have to add 4 more names. So you can provide some input. You can also see the list of evaluators. It's going to be much longer than the actual group of people who will eventually write letters for you because, like I said, chairs have to distribute a wide net to receive even the minimum number of letters. But when you see the list, you are allowed to also veto 2 names. So it might be that you have a bad relationship with those people. You think they don't get what you do. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons why you strike a couple of names from the list, but you do have that sort of ability. You know, and one thing you can talk about with your chairs is not about specific names. And by the way, you should never approach anyone yourself to ask them to evaluate for you. Do not do that. That's something your chair does. But you can have a conversation about perhaps maybe the type of people who might be best to evaluate your case. You're not providing real direct input on exactly who those folks might be, but there might be things about sort of what you think your argument is going to be that might be best if a certain group of people in a certain type of discipline with a specific focus may want to see rather than others. So that's a conversation you can have with your chair as you're beginning the process. But that becomes the next step. Let me see, I don't think I've missed anything on the details there. In April and May, you're going to create and submit your materials. I put on the calendar, I updated this with the chairs and asked them to send it out. So I don't know what copy of the calendar you may have looked like for P&T, but I put May 1st as the deadline to submit your materials to the department. That gives them plenty of time during the summer to send out those materials to evaluators, because that is really a long process. And as you all know, when faculty leave during summers, they have vacations and other things going on. And so that can be a very lengthy process to get evaluators. But that's also a date that you can talk to your chairs about. and sort of what process do they want to use. Following the agenda that I provided, this takes us now to external reviewer materials, which are the professional record, the personal statement, list of publications or creative works, and the select research creative works. And so your professional record, I've got just a few notes here that you should keep in mind is your professional record must be the university format, university template for a professional record. This should not be your CV. It should not have an alternate format. You can erase categories that are just not relevant to your case so that you don't submit 42 pages of blank documents, but just sort of the key things that apply to your that are relevant to your career. Also, do not note. Oh, and the CV also needs to be signed and dated when you submit it, just like you do with like select salary. Almost any important process where the university asks for your professional record, it needs to be signed and dated. And for publications or creative work, please do not include any publications in progress other than things that are in the process of being published or they've been accepted into venues and that you've got documentation to support that. Okay, do not put things that you're hoping to do someday or things that are still out there but you haven't received feedback on. Now, if you do get something late breaking and your file has already been sent out, it is possible for us to amend your file all the way up until the point that we submit it to the provost office. Now that becomes real challenging, and we have to sort of let folks know about late developments because obviously people have already evaluated the packet, wrote letters, it's gone through a committee or two, but that is possible if there is something of really significant importance to your packet, like a major award, a major publication, or a major creative work is now being accepted in a prestigious venue. Those are things that can be updated in the file. And hopefully we have an opportunity then to incorporate that into a letter when that arises. But don't put, like I said, things that you wish to do should not be in your publication list. Next to the personal statement, to me, this is one of the most important documents in the packet. You should really spend time working on this. You should definitely have other eyes review this document for you. This is your narrative that explains your body of work in research or creative work. You can explain how your work has developed over time and where it's headed in the future, and what sort of is the central theme of your work. How does it all connect together? It might be that you have service and teaching that kind of is also informed by that work that you can fold in, but this is primarily about your research agenda or your creative agenda and sort of how your professional career has developed either as a new faculty member at Wayne State, going up for promotion to associate with tenure, or kind of where you have built your career since promotion and tenure if you're going up for full. But this is really your document. But again, this is for multiple audiences. So really think about how bioengineers or medical doctors or folks across the university might read your document and understand the things that you think define your career. And so don't make any assumptions in any of the documents about how easily people might understand the significance of a particular event or a particular publication. Spell it out for folks. Now, the personal statement is only 5 pages, so you've got to make choices as to what you talk about. And again, I think having folks review it can be very helpful to help you figure out where can you put stuff in, what needs to be emphasized, what needs to be taken out. I remember Laura Lee Keishley was incredibly helpful with me when she was my interim department chair at the time, or acting chair, that my justification of some publications came off defensive rather than kind of more affirming of the value of the publications, I guess. And so that really helped me in constructing my argument. And again, as I said in the beginning, everybody's promotion and everybody's personal statement is going to be very different, because everybody's career development and sort of the way in which you are reaching the end point to make an argument for promotion or promotion and tenure is different. So when you ask for it, feel free to ask for examples of these documents in your department. Because typically there will be examples floating around, or you can ask colleagues about their documents. But bear in mind that their statement's going to look different than yours, and you don't have to model exactly what they've done in order to make a persuasive case. Let's see. Oh, and just sort of emphasize it's a creative, scholarly document. This is not about your teaching philosophy. It's not about any other sort of elements. Like if they end up connecting to teaching and maybe some large service element that you've done, you can mention that in passing, but the primary focus here is your creative and scholarly work. The next item for your external reviewers is a numbered list of publications and creative works. You should be selective about what work you want to present to evaluators and the additional committees. This is something to talk to your chair and your faculty mentor about, what exactly you want to include in the documents that get sent out. But you also have a list that numbers those documents. And in this list, it isn't just put electronic URL link and nothing else. You should put more information than that here. And the guidelines talk about that in the packet that I provided you, but you should have full citation information, like I said, not just URL links. If it's research, full citation with a link to the electronic copy. If you know your journal impact factors or selectivity, that can be included here, or any other measures of excellence for the document for what you have in this list, you can put here. Now, that doesn't preclude you from also talking about those measures in your own personal statement and elsewhere in your packet, but this is one place where you can note that information. For creative work, you also want to note selectivity of venues. If there's any other sort of markers of quality, I recommend that you put those there as well. And they don't all have to be highly selective. You know where your work has been, and some are more selective than others. And it might be the very fact that some are less selective might be a strength for that particular venue. But you should note it here and then sort of talk about that particular venue in your professional statement as sort of a marquee element that can help kind of contextualize that some. But also bear in mind that your department chair, your P&T committee at the departmental level, part of their jobs in evaluating your record is to help contextualize your achievements. And when it gets to the college level, one of the things that we attempt to do as well is look at your record and say, oh, this is how the dean and the university committee ought to understand your achievements. And so you've got other people that'll be doing some of that contextualization work for you, but you can also do some of that work in your professional statement yourself. The next item that you provide for your external reviewers then are the select publications or creative works. There's a space for 20 uploads. I doubt you want to submit that much material. But again, this is a conversation to have with your chair and faculty mentors on exactly what it is that you want to present that makes the best case for what you've done with your career and the argument for why you should receive promotion and tenure or promotion. Okay, so those are the materials that go out to your external reviewers to evaluate. There's another set of documents that you produce that are evaluated internally. And those 4 documents are your teaching portfolio, which is a 20-page document. It is no more than 20 pages, much like your personal statement cannot be more than 5 pages. So I know it's hard sometimes for us as faculty to follow our own page limit demands of our students, but it's especially true. These things will get sent back from the provost office. And then we'll have to tell you, I'm sorry, I know those 2 pages were really valuable, but you got to cut them because they won't go past the provost office. But the teaching portfolio, again, you can talk to your chair and look at examples of these documents, but it should include things like your teaching philosophy, example syllabi, representative assignments that you think really reflect your teaching style, peer reviews if you have any of them, like if you have a review process from your peer faculty, pedagogical presentations or publications you can note within this portfolio, example assignment. I talked about example assignments. Any other evidence of your excellence in teaching. Like when I think back to my packet, I included lists. I had a lot of graduate advisees, and so I included not only a list of all those advisees, but I included information about where they are now in their career. I was the director of the speech and debate team, so I included some of the alumni from that program as evidence of my teaching, because coaching is very much teaching. And so that became part of my packet. You can be very strategic in what you present in this packet to demonstrate your value as an educator. Again, you're working with 20 pages, so it'll fill up fast. So again, look for other examples. Talk to folks about kind of, here's what I'm thinking about including. Do you have advice on what I should take out or put in? But definitely, much like your personal statement, seek input on how the portfolio looks. You'll also need to include your longitudinal report on set scores. These are not your individual set reports that you get each semester, but there's a report that's run that just includes the 3 global questions. It's about 5 to 6 years of scores, and it's a single page. And so in the packet, there's an example of this set report at the end of the guideline section that'll show you what it looks like. And there may well be in recent years, this was not a problem when I went up for promotion, but there may be gaps in your record. It might vary on that longitudinal report. It might be because you taught an incredibly small class that did not meet the threshold number necessary for the university to officially report it. It might also be because you had COVID leave. I mean, it might be a variety of leave reasons that might also impact kind of scoring gaps. Your professional record will tell various committees that you're on leave and things like that. So we'll understand some of those gaps in your teaching. So don't fret if you look at it and say, oh no, my 5820 class isn't on here. I don't understand. That's kind of understood within that report.
So I have a question on that. Amy, you've had a recent application go up. Does the department run that set longitudinal report? Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. So your department supervisor will help with that.
Yeah, I'm not even sure faculty can run that report on their own. I've had the ability to do it, but I've had director roles that allowed me to have access into it a couple of times. So yeah, you'll ask that from the department, or they'll just provide it. Amy, do you just add that yourself into their materials? Yeah. Another item that you have is for your packet is miscellaneous information. This used to be tab 13, which when I was going up for promotion was like this sort of unicorn that existed. But this is where I suggest folks, if you have material for it, use this liberally. What I mean by that is this is a place to put stuff that doesn't fit anywhere else that might be relevant to your case, that you should probably make reference to somewhere in your other materials. But like I said, I was a director of a speech and debate team that was very successful, but I didn't have anywhere to put evidence of that success and the work that we did. So that all went into the miscellaneous tab. I created like a list of my daily responsibilities, our record over the years that I had been director, list of alumni. We hosted tons of events, so I included flyers for all those events there, and I made reference to that stuff in my, obviously in my professional record. But any sort of documentation that you have of things that you think really are necessary to understand your career, you can put in the miscellaneous section. And then the last item is an external funded research creative work spreadsheet. There's an example of it in the packet. For some of you, this may not be a relevant document, and you just put NA, I think, in the first box. But for those of you that have any external sort of funding, there's a spreadsheet to note those sort of things. Lauren?
I just want to say about the miscellaneous tab. folks to be mindful that to not use it to expand the 20-page teaching portfolio or the personal statement. So things that should be in the teaching portfolio should be in the teaching portfolio, not in the miscellaneous tab.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, these should be just things that don't fit elsewhere. They're truly miscellaneous. And like I said, they probably appear on your professional record somewhere, but this just provides some documentation of it. The guidelines document that I provided in the packet is from the provost office. I've discussed much of it up to this point. There's also, as I said earlier, instructions about using SmartPath as both an administrator and as a faculty member. Let me show you if I can figure out how to do that. 1 second, please. Oh, I guess I need to open this up. There it is. All right, do folks see, Lauren, you're the only person I can see at the moment. Do you see the SmartPath? Okay, thank you. So this is what, from an administrator perspective, SmartPath looks like. And so the very first box, promotion information, is something created by your department. And they'll fill in that information that basically sort of kicks off the process. And then the part that I've highlighted and circled here is the faculty documents. And just so that you can see that, you know, where each sort of thing I just talked about, where it goes. And you can really almost think of them, the language of the FAQ when it talks about binders. There used to be 2 binders. You had the external evaluator binder, which is the first set of documents. And then the additional faculty documents were binder 2, I believe, or maybe no, take that back. I'm sorry. Binder 1 was all your information. Binder 2 was your research and creative work. But anyway, you can think about them as sort of 2 bundles of documents here. And you'll get an email that will allow you to access to upload documents into it, but you'll never see this full page. This is what Robin and I see, for instance, that allows us to see kind of where things have your evaluator letters come in. Do we have summaries of the qualifications of those people? And it allows us to bounce those things back and forth. And so I just wanted to show you a little bit of what the system looks like, but it's infinitely better than the process I had to go through, where inevitably you got things out of order and you had to like label individual documents very carefully and things like that. See here, and you'll work with your office administrator or manager on uploading documents. If there's any problems whatsoever, we will be in touch with you. So do not get upset if the department returns a form to you or the college sends something back to you. A lot of times it's just you made a simple, honest mistake. Sometimes it's that a committee will be reviewing your documents and say, you could tighten up your argument or present something a little bit better. And here's a recommendation on how to do it. So anytime we bounce stuff back to you, it's not to be a pain in the ass, but it's meant to help your case. We want your best case coming forward. And so you really benefit from the number of committees that review your documents because they're always thinking ahead. Like the college committee conversations are always, how is this going to play out when it goes to the university committee? Let's ask them to clean up either a listing of items in their professional record or to tighten up the language in the personal statement, include an additional syllabus or an assignment example that really illustrates this one thing that you talk about a bunch in your teaching portfolio, anything like that. So you will receive some of those requests, but as I said, these are not punitive actions. They are meant to assist your case. In the packet, I also provided a P&T cover sheet. This is not something that you will really interact with, but it's a useful kind of reminder of the tasks that need to be completed. And so I always like to include the cover sheet for your reference. And then there's a P&T FAQ at the end of the packet that I provided that you can read through. I may answer some of the questions that you have. Like I said, the language is a bit outdated about binders and tabs, so ignore that part. But it does explain some of the things that I talked about. Some other questions are addressed in there. And I just want to end with a few bits of advice that I've gotten from other people and to explain the difference between promotion to associate and full professor. And then I'll open the floor for questions that you have. So the general difference between promotion to associate or full professor is the first thing for all of you to do is to always start with your department and university factors. Your factors will be the best guide to answer what level of promotion that you want to do and what you need to accomplish to meet those expectations. And your chair and your faculty mentors, particularly for the assistant professors, I don't know that we have a lot of mentoring for those folks going up for full, but always start with those resources that you have at the local level and in those factors. The standard for promotion to associate is excellence in all three areas. And it's recognition of your work as comparable to peers at a similar level in their career, not peers in your department, because as I've noted, we don't do comparisons between individuals and departments, but your external evaluators will often use language of compared to other similar cases that I'm aware of or faculty at my institution, this would be a clear case for promotion with tenure or to promotion to professor, full professor. So that's what other people are considering. The university evaluators are going to be looking more at our individual factors and seeing, do you meet and surpass those expectations that are in the factors. For the full professors, the standard for promotion is really your leadership, widely defined, and your national, international reputation. Okay, that and as one mentor has told me, you know, a good guide on it is that you've lapped your career from when you went up for assistant. And that how you lap yourself may be done in a lot of different ways. Perhaps it's higher quality of venues than when you were going up for associate, or that you have taken on much larger leadership roles in professional organizations, that you've been a president, or that you have worked with an organization to develop new programs that have brought a lot of prestige to not only the organization, but to you and to Wayne State University. There's a lot of ways in which you can kind of meet that end point in the argument that you're advancing, but that is very broadly defined through the expectations between those two levels. And like I said, your departmental factors will give you far more specific guidance on how, you know, what sort of things you can talk about and what level of work you need to do to reach those specific points. I just want to pause for a second to make sure I've not spoken out of turn on any of that with our administrators and our chair here. And your personal statements and all your documents are going to provide the evidence for that. And so, you know, at the end of the day, your entire promotion packet is going to be just a very large argument, with the framing of it all being your personal statement, and then the choices that you make of which creative work or research, scholarly work that you want to put in, or what sort of documents you want to provide as evidence of your excellence or your reputation in terms of your teaching and other work that you're doing. A few bits of advice that I've gotten from our dean, from my experience, from administrators and other people that have given me a few bits of advice over the years is, obviously, as I said before, write for multiple audiences. Make sure that if there's acronyms or there's organizations that seem everyday to you, that you should explain somewhere in your documents what that organization is and why it's relevant and significant. Seek input from as many people as you can on your professional record, personal statement, teaching portfolio. Ask for examples. You know, bug people. Like, this is not something that you should just guess kind of what's expected, but seek as many resources from your colleagues and from the department as you can. For the promotion to associate professor with tenure, you know, the one thing, I don't know where people are at in sort of their process there, but if you still have time, really try to be visible in your profession so that people are aware of who you are. One thing that I know from talking to other external evaluators, is that sometimes people will Google, for instance, they'll look up your website, or they'll kind of look up your profile on a university page to just see sort of roughly what your work is, and they'll determine, gosh, this kind of seems hard. I don't know if I want to spend a lot of time evaluating it. So you want to do a couple of things as a result. One is to have a profile in terms of conferences and organizations, so people are like, oh yeah, I know that person. Like, they don't know you closely, because that's a problem for evaluators. Like, I guess this is one thing I didn't mention earlier, is your evaluators need to be people that are arm's length from you. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't know who you are. It just means that they can't have worked on a project closely with you, or they weren't your mentor, that they have a close personal friendship with you. They need to be people that are aware of you, perhaps. I mean, they don't have to be aware of you. They can still evaluate you. But one of the things that we have to document at the departmental level and moving up is, what is your relationship with this person? And they'll note that in their letter, that they are aware of who you are, but they've never worked with you. They may say they've never met you, but they're familiar with your scholarship or creative work. But they all need to be at some distance. But you can still maintain some, it's good to have a profile publicly so people are aware of who you are. If you have a web presence, particularly for creative faculty, make sure it's up to date. Because again, people might kind of Google to look at, hey, what's this person doing? I mean, they'll have your profession, they won't have documents before we request them to review. And so the one of the things you want to do, people kind of look to see, oh, who is this person? What are they up to? What are they doing? That if you have any of that sort of documentation out in the world, make sure that it's up to date and representative of what you're doing at this moment when you submit your materials. And I think, it's, the whole process, kind of wrap this up, is, it's really anxious to go up, but as I said, you've got a large network and a group of people that are working for you, and our goal is that everybody gets their promotion and tenure. Like, it's devastating to all of us that we've invested in people and that isn't the outcome. So feel free to ask questions, seek resources. Like I said, when we pester you about the format of your professional record, for instance, we're doing it to help you and to make sure that you not only meet university expectations, but you're making your best case possible. So, feel free to ask, those sorts of questions. And to transition out of that, what questions do folks have for us that we can address here in the 16 minutes or so that we have left? There's no way I covered it all, so. There we go. Mark.
Hey, could you talk a little bit about how materials that are not peer reviewed but are like articles fit into the processes that go into miscellaneous? I was also curious about including information prior to being hired. So I have like several peer-reviewed articles that I did before I got this job. Are those things that I should include? Thanks.
Yeah, I might need to tag Lauren in on this. I suspect that you would not want to include previous material unless you negotiated that to be included as part of your packet.
I think that's in the
maybe Robin as well.
FAQs. I'm going to look
Okay.
up that up. I think that was addressed in the FAQs.
But yeah, I think it needs to be material that you've produced while being here. And that.
I'm
No?
going to say that we have had different communications at the chair's meetings,
Okay.
particularly chair camp this summer, that it's has historically been done wildly differently across the university, whether a department or unit will consider previous work or only work done at Wayne State. And the directive or suggestion we have gotten as chairs is to be expansive with that, because there are folks that are coming to us with considerable experience, particularly folks that are going up early.
Yeah, that makes, I got you.
And from other institutions. So I would, that's the communication that I have gotten. You know, and I think the other point I'll make is that we have been trained to, or expected to look at a scope of work or a trajectory. And so that kind of, if that previous work to Wayne State is part of a trajectory, it makes sense. If it's a one-off big thing that happened 10 years ago, then it makes less sense in context of
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and again, you know, talk to your chair about, you know, and faculty mentors about kind of what you want to include that you think best reflect, as Lauren pointed out, your trajectory of your career. And that, yeah, I know also hearing from Boris in the fall that definitely the desire of the university is to, you know, while we often focus on just the work at Wayne State, that, you know, ultimately we are evaluating a career wherever you may have started it. You know, one thing that came up in the one recording too is if you're going up for an assistant, is to make sure that your work reflects your independence as a scholar, that all of your publications are not with your academic advisor, and that it's grown since you did your terminal project as a graduate student. That's not related to what Mark asked about, but it was something else that I know came up in kind of a discussion of materials that are included. Do you have an example, Mark, of the non-peer-reviewed articles or material?
Yeah, I mean, in my field, at least in theater and dance, there's a lot of important journals in the field that are not peer-reviewed, but are, you know, important and that may even get more readership. And I just struggle with wanting to publish in those or feeling like I should just only put my work in peer-reviewed publications. And I remember there was a document that came out like not too long ago that I thought there was some language in there about, you know, that non-peer review work is recognized. So I just wanted if there was any more clarification around that.
Sure. I mean, that may be a discipline specific kind of conversation to have within your department, but you know, generally the language is that you want to make sure that you have like a good, solid, quality peer-reviewed piece that is, if you're going up to associate and promotion and with tenure, is that you really want sort of your sort of marquee piece, right? And that could be a book, it might be one or two publications that are really like this is really what defines me as a scholar. But you might have a host of other kinds of publications beyond that work. You know, so I would recommend, and again, I'm going to defer to anything that your own department and your mentors say, so I'm not a final word by any means, but if you were to take my advice, you know, I would say don't waste time with other venues if that prevents you from doing that sort of really high quality, high visibility kind of work there. But there's no reason why you can't have that other work and why you can't create an argument that say, I also publish in these other type of journals because they have a wider audience, you know, and that's important to the kind of work that I do and my commitment to accessible scholarship and kind of whatever framing you want to put around it, you know, but also, like I said, be mindful of the audiences that you're going to have, you know, like you're going to have folks that are part of a 50-person research team, you know, that has nothing but like 80 peer-reviewed pieces on their professional record that are going to have maybe a hard time sort of understanding that. So you need to provide framing for that. And then, you know, hopefully your chair and your committee is also providing some additional explanation of like, hey, they wouldn't phrase it this way, but to say like, yes, this is not the norm for some fields, but in this discipline, this is a really important journal. Here's why. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna add, I'm jumping in on your parade
That's
since I was
fine.
excited to be
Fine.
here.
Yep.
That in the visual arts in particular, we don't fit within this mold very well. And Mark, we make a lot of cases for alternate formats of publication and alternate definitions of peer review, because peer review means something very specific within, say, the sciences or humanities, and it can mean, so we talk about invited essays and invited exhibitions versus juried, and how those are both a form of peer review. So there are ways of framing it, and I think what I really agree with Kelly is it's your role to contextualize, and your committee's role to contextualize, and your chair's role to contextualize the significance of those publications. Because it may not be that there is, like Kelly said, that journal, that thing, that cornerstone piece. It may be this sort of breadth, and for those of you that work interdisciplinarily, making a case for different kinds of scholarship is very much something that happens in our college. Within one practice, yeah. Yeah,
well, and you brought up a good point there, is sometimes a case, like I said, there's so many different ways to kind of make a case for yourself that, I remember seeing a case once that my kind of initial read of it, I was just like, I don't get it. Like they haven't done much work. I just don't understand this case. And then I reread the personal statement a couple of times, and then it was just like a light bulb went off that I was just like, oh, wow. Like it isn't so much that there's one piece, but like this whole body of stuff is just so tightly tied together. And it created such a profile for this person that I was just like, that's awesome. Like kind of to understand the full scope of the work that's being done, and then I kind of made it a point that we should be very clear in emphasizing the interconnectivity of all this work and how that alone creates this profile for this particular person. Other questions folks have? Trying desperately, like in all meetings, to not cut off anyone as that bad professor. But Julie, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there is, and I just saw the attachment that you sent, but maybe it's in there. But I was wondering if there's a document that lays out a kind of general timeline for tenure track faculty of like not just when you submit materials, but like all of the years leading up to that. Like what should I be working on in the third semester versus the fifth semester or second year?
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, there isn't a master document for that, but and we used to have at this university a third year review, which was really the union, for whatever reason, negotiated that out. And I really found that pretty useful when I went up because it kind of helped me measure some of that stuff. But you can do a couple of things. One is, I think, sit down with the chair and your faculty mentors and just say, like, I would like to map out what I should be doing. And so you could sit and say, like, here's some things I'm doing now. I think these will roughly go into these venues at these times. Now, what else do I need to be doing when? Like when do I need to start focusing on national organization service, if you think that's something important, or when do I need to be on certain committees in the university? Like those can all be sort of points of conversation you can develop in a roadmap of kind of roughly around these times you want to be making sure you're doing these things. You can also, nothing precludes you from doing like an informal third year review. Just make sure your chair, and if you've got some faculty mentors or some people that can help with it, you can ask people to look at materials kind of midway and say, how am I doing? Do you think this, based on what I'm doing and projecting forward what I'm working on, do you think that, do you think I'm headed the right way? Your chair can't answer that question. Deans can't answer that question because we can't make you a promise in case you don't fulfill, and plus we don't do the entirety of all the reviews, but you can certainly review some of that work. And yeah, thank you, Lauren, for the comment here about a 5-year plan. You know, I think that is useful and good things to talk to your mentors and chairs about. Yeah. Good question, Margaret. They matter quite a bit. You know, the external evaluator letters, what they really serve to do is they become sort of evidence that's really used by your committees and the chair and the dean as kind of that you know, objective evaluation of your work. And so a lot of your letters will directly cite evaluator letters and comments that are made. Particularly, I noticed that much more at the departmental level. The college level will do it some, but the college level tries to kind of then contextualize all those comments and things a little bit more. So they matter, they have quite a bit of weight. You know, there can be instances in which there's an evaluator letter that is not enthusiastically in support. You know, but if it's like a one-off, that does not necessarily doom a case. You know, it might be very well that your committee and your chair and other people are like, well, wait a minute, that seems really out of character of all these other evaluations, and it's not our opinion of it. And so others may comment on that letter and say, well, you know, we try to do it in a strategic way so that we don't draw too much attention to the letter, but it is addressed somewhere. And so, you know, your various committees, chairs, dean will look at those letters, but they will kind of sort out the relevance of particular things said in those letters and try to incorporate it into the arguments that they're making on your behalf. And sometimes too, you can get like a letter that's really supportive, but just sort of unuseful. Like I have seen sometimes a letter that's like barely a page and it just doesn't say much, you know, and so we just all sort of skip past that letter or pull the one sentence that's useful in it and kind of focus on other ones. So like a really good external evaluator letter is lengthy. It's really thoughtful about everything that you've done, and it talks about what we've asked them to talk about. And in your packet, there's an example, the template of the letter that your chair sends out. And so you can see sort of what is requested of the evaluators. But a good evaluators spend their time on it, you know, and they put their time into crafting the letter. I've done that sort of work, and I enjoy doing it because I know the importance of it for people, but it's work. I mean, if you think journal review is a lot of work, it's little compared to reviewing someone's career and making meaningful commentary on where their career is and where it's going. Yeah. Any other questions? We are at time, but if anyone's got a last question. All right, bad professor intervention. I don't see any other hands. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you've got follow-up questions, feel free to ask me, talk to your chair, talk to your faculty. You know, we are all here to assist you in the process, and we don't want anything to be unclear to you or confusing. And so please feel free to reach out. You know, I see you. I do not have a vote or say in any of your cases, but I do help shepherd, along with Robin, shepherd you all the way up through the process. And I chair the college P&T committee and work with them to make sure that they're doing the work necessary to get letters to the dean that then hopefully then go into the university and the board of governors and all that sort of process, the end game of it. So thank you all for coming. Hopefully this has been helpful and the materials that I've sent. And as I said, I'll follow up with links to this conversation, link to the provost office video as well. And then I'll send you a link to the Provost resource page. In case you've not been to that page, there's a bunch of material that's very useful for you, but I've included a lot of it in the packet that I sent you. All right, goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. And then Robin, I guess, stopped, I guess, when you she left. So, all right.